So the Nintendo Switch 2 is rolling right now. Over 23 million units sold in the first year, actually almost 24 million units as of the end of June 30th. So it's definitely over 24 million units at this point. So Nintendo is on a heater that they have never been on before when it comes to system sales. And that's going to come with the expectations of a lot of new games and good games. Nintendo stated that they know that they have to continue delivering a consistent flow of first-party games in order to keep the momentum going with their system. Now, they do have significantly more third-party support than what they had with the Nintendo Switch 1 in the first number of years. And actually, this is the best third-party support that they've probably ever had starting out. A lot of major companies, especially Japanese developers, are supporting it, and a ton of indie games. But one of the big games, the key focal point for 2026, is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and Nintendo has a brand new Ocarina of Time Nintendo Switch 2 strategy that I want to discuss in detail here, because it is something that I don't see many other people talking about, and I do feel that it was very deliberate and it was a good plan, all things considered. Now, not best for the consumers when it comes to the price increase and stuff that we're going to talk about, but I feel that it was timed and it was positioned in a way to where it would maximize not only giving fans the best opportunity to get the system at a lower price, but to time it up with some of the biggest games. So we're going to talk about exactly what that new Zelda Ocarina of Time strategy is for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the second half here. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Nintendo has 100% confirmed and reconfirmed that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is launching this year for the Nintendo Switch 2. This is an exclusive. It is a remake of the original Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time from the Nintendo 64 era. So it's been quite some time, nearly 30 years or so since that game released. It's a legendary title, one of the highest rated games of all time, and it's something that I do believe that Nintendo needs to treat with the utmost care. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think they can pull it off, and pull it off in a way to where Zelda fans and fans just in general are really going to see why Ocarina of Time is such a great game in its core mechanics and what it does. So we have that reconfirmation for this year in 2026. However, with that, there were some fans that were upset when it comes to what we had recently with the Fire Emblem Fortunes Weave Direct. They felt that should have been The Legend of Zelda, but that doesn't even make any sense. And let me tell you the reason why. Nintendo always, for the last almost decade now at this point, September has been the show. It has been the time, the direct, the anniversary, the whatever. September is always that month that Nintendo makes sure to have the big display, the big direct for the upcoming games or titles or anniversaries. So it would make no sense for them to do a blowout in August when it comes to The Legend of Zelda for a game that's coming out in November, yet right there in September, you have your usual typical spot for a anniversary or for a big Nintendo Direct, whereas Fire Emblem Fortunes Weave drops in mid-September, September 17th, so you have to start the marketing now. And at this point, after looking at that Fire Emblem Fortunes Weave Direct, that game's going to be incredible. I think it's going to rate higher than all of Nintendo's first-party games, maybe with the exception of Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm not sure how many other games that Nintendo's going to have for this year. Well, Ocarina of Time, I think that's going to rate higher, but I don't think they're going to have many other games that's been released as a first-party title on the Nintendo Switch 2 that's going to rate higher than Fire Emblem. The game looks absolutely incredible, and what it does in the strategy RPG genre is really innovative. There's not many other strategy RPGs on a large scale that are moving like this, and Fire Emblem is getting it done. So I do think that people do see now that that game is super high quality and worth the direct and worth the praise that it's getting from fans out there. So to me, at least, it makes sense to market that here in August. You got third-party games, and then in September, it's going to be the big show when it comes to a Nintendo Direct and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and other fall games as well. Now, here's the thing. the price is going to be an issue. It poses that issue for people out there. Everything's getting more expensive. Now the Nintendo Switch 2 is getting more expensive. That makes it less affordable for families and people out there. However, I do believe that it was perfectly timed to maximize every single sale. It was a strategy that they intentionally knew that they can do, because people were thinking, man, they really announced that price increase pretty early, but that was intentional. And the September date for that price increase was also intentional when it comes to what Nintendo is going to be doing in September. It lines up way too cleanly for it to be some type of coincidence or something. It's not. It was well planned out. So here's the thing. A big possible Nintendo Direct in September to line up with the Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary celebration. Nintendo did something very similar to this just last year. In September, they did a big Nintendo Direct where they had a bunch of games revealed like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, Mario Tennis Fever, and more, in addition to a Mario 40th anniversary with Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 being announced too, and a bunch of Mario stuff. So they took a Mario Direct and they bundled that together with a Nintendo Direct and just said, hey, here's like 20 minutes of Mario, then the rest of the Direct. They could do the same exact thing here with the Legend of Zelda this year in September, where they have a Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary celebration Direct, and they put that within a regular Nintendo Direct, or they could just have a big Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary. And we're going to talk about that and what they could do in just a bit here, but I do think that it's very likely that we see that. They still have Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, so if you're looking at what's happening from September, October, November, with the price increase that was slated for September 1st, if you're a fan of any of those core IPs of Nintendo Switch Sports or Fire Emblem or Legend of Zelda, you're probably either going to buy the system now while you can for the cheaper price, or you're going to buy it when those games drop. Nintendo timed it perfectly, saying, okay, we know it's $50 more and that's less affordable, but we've got Fire Emblem for you. We've got Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, which, by the way, that sold over 18 million units. Nintendo Switch Sports sold over 18 million units on the Nintendo Switch 1. So there's a lot of people that really like that game and bought a Switch 1 for the Nintendo Switch Sports. And they can do that with the Switch 2 with this new game coming out. And then, of course, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, where millions upon millions upon millions of people are going to buy that game day one. That's probably going to be one of the bigger selling individually released games that the Nintendo Switch 2 has had up until this point. I do think that it's probably going to set a record for the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's one of those things to where, yes, not good with the price increase, but it lines up really well with some dedicated core multi-million proven selling IPs on previous Nintendo hardware that all have entries that either look great now at this point, or I think will look great with the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time when they finally show it off, probably in September. So that strategy of getting the price increase timed up with the reveal and kind of what's happening there in September, I think that was a masterful gambit when it comes down to it, because nobody likes price increases. But if you have strong IP system selling type of games, and you're still one of the most, if not the most affordable current platform on the market, and will be the more affordable platform on the market, with rumors of the Xbox Helix and the PlayStation 6 being $1,000 plus because we're getting choked out by RAM and AI data centers, I do think that the Switch 2 is still set up to do incredibly well. And people have already kind of been buying at $500, although you do get a game with that. It's not like people feel that that's a terrible price for the system. So I think they're going to be fine with everything that I just talked about here. Now, Nintendo was able to give gamers plenty of time to buy it before the price hike, but once again, I think that was also timed up. If you give people less amount of time, you'll probably have a less pool of people that will rush out there and go buy it. But if you give people a lot more time and you say, hey, the price increase is coming in this number of months, you're going to give people significantly more time to go out there and pick it up, and more people will do that, as we saw with the most recent financial report where Nintendo sold 3.8 million plus systems in the first quarter, which is traditionally the slowest quarter of the year, and they were able to sell some of the best ever. That's actually better than any quarter that we've seen, I think, for the PlayStation 4 and some of the highest selling systems out there. So to sell that high for a quarter one, people saw that the price was going up and was like, okay, I'm gonna pick it up. And it's even gonna get more desperate when it comes to the sales as we get closer and closer. I've seen less and less of those choose your game bundles at my local stores. So I do think, once again, it was a two-pronged strategy with letting people know, getting a lot of sales because of that, and then of course timing it up with a big game like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, probably revealed in September with the 40th anniversary celebration. Now, I want to talk about that 40th anniversary celebration because I think there's going to be a number of things there. And I know that we talk about this every single time, but it's still very much possible. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, both of these games are still rumored to come to the Nintendo Switch 2. I know we got Legend of Zelda Wind Waker on NSO, but that's the NSO version. The Wind Waker HD version from the Wii U is significantly better with the Swift Sail, with the adjusted Master Quest and all sorts of stuff. I need that version when it comes down to it. Now, they could be tweaking these a lot more than maybe what people are expecting. I wouldn't be surprised if that was happening too, because if you look at what happened with Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, it wasn't just a 1080p 60 frames per second or a 4K upscale type of thing. There was some redone texture work. There was definitely some more stuff done to that game than maybe what people expected when it comes down to that. So we could see that with The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD, and that would be awesome because those games running at 60 frames per second in 4K or 1440p 60 frames per second would enhance both of those games greatly when it comes to the playability of those, especially over the Wii U versions, which were a little bit crusty at the 1080p 30 FPS, and Wind Waker HD just had frame rate drops whenever there was like the big octopus in the sea and stuff. So I do think that would be better if they got those tuned up and nice for the Nintendo Switch 2. I still think that there's going to be a Zelda themed Nintendo Switch 2, either Ocarina of Time themed or just Zelda flat out themed. That's a rumor that people have put out there. I would not be surprised. We've got multiple Zelda Nintendo hardware before. That's just something that happens all the time. So I think that could happen at the Zelda 40th anniversary if we get one. The Legend of Zelda themed Pro Controller, we've gotten multiple versions of those. Legend of Zelda themed Joy-Cons, we've gotten multiple versions of those. Also, new NSO Zelda games. I think it would be interesting if they dropped a few games that haven't came out yet. I know people really want to play a lot of the older titles that are not quite on there outside of Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. So I would expect maybe some smaller NSO titles to be coming over, maybe some new merch and new different toys and stuff like that when it comes to Legend of Zelda, and potentially the first real teaser trailer or look at the Legend of Zelda movie trailer or something. Like, I think that they need to do something with that Legend of Zelda movie. We're starting to get castings for Impa and for Ganondorf. Apparently they've got those casted, and it seems like every single casting here is pretty much a 10 out of 10 so far. They've been spot on. They're getting people that very much look like they could be Link or Princess Zelda or Ganon or Impa. So I like what's going on here. I think that it has good vibes. I think it's going to be a solid movie, and I think that it's going to be more of a movie goers like movie to where it's going to rate better than the Mario movies. It's setting up to be a pretty good movie based on some of the casting, but we're going to have to wait. I mean, you never know until you actually see that first trailer, or you see it in the movie theaters, or you see what's happening for yourself, and you can say, okay, I like the movie or not. But so far, so good when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and the strategy and what is happening here when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. I think there's going to be some big reveals and interesting things going down in September. So what do you think about everything that I talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.